Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And finally, we are done with nowcasting and we're back to actually forecasting weather because Hurricane Helene is finally done here in the United States. Unfortunately, this thing has left a trail of destruction and damage across the southeast United States, and it is still continuing today as at least a post-tropical cyclone back over here in the Ohio Valley, where it's going to continue to dump plenty of rain and the potential even for some more flooding, which is not what we need after what we saw yesterday. There were tons of dam failures yesterday. There was also just a catastrophic flooding across areas like Georgia, South and North Carolina, and then obviously on landfall in Florida, it also caused a bunch of damage right along the shoreline with tons of storm surge and hurricane force winds. So overall, this system has caused a travesty when it comes to damage, one of the most historic hurricanes that we've ever covered. The good news is that it is winding down. The bad news is that we could see something next week that could be another tropical storm or hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. And we're going to be talking more about that here in this forecast. The tropics are exploding with activity right now. We have 5 different areas that we're watching right now across the Atlantic Ocean, and we're going to be breaking all of these down for you in detail here in just a few minutes, especially this one, which might be another tropical storm or hurricane that goes in the Gulf of Mexico this upcoming week. First, let's talk more about the weather closer to home. And right now we have the spinning low pressure system back over in the Ohio Valley, which is going to continue to dump light to moderate rain throughout the day today and as well as tomorrow. I wouldn't rule out a brief spin up, maybe even a brief like funnel cloud back over here in West Virginia or western even parts of Virginia. But I think overall this is mostly just going to be a broad area of low pressure that's just going to bring some light to moderate rainfall. Even in areas like Ohio tomorrow could even pick up a little bit more rain, and even back over in West Virginia for areas that desperately need rain, especially with the drought they're in, this will definitely help. The bad news is that areas back over in like western North Carolina, for example, that don't need more rain are going to pick up at least around another 1/10 of an inch to maybe another inch of rain. Now that might not sound like much, but with how much flooding is already there, we just don't need rain in those areas. Many areas over there picked upwards of 25 inches of rain up from this hurricane, which is just unbelievable. And so for the rest of the Ohio Valley over the next few days, we are going to pick up a few more inches of rain, especially in Kentucky. Other areas though still going to be dealing with upwards of a 1/10 to maybe even another inch of rain across much of the Ohio Valley. Now for the rest of the United States, the weather pattern is going to be very interesting over the next several days, and it's not one you usually see at the end of September or even going into October. It's going to actually be a somewhat quieter weather pattern. We are going to be dealing with, again, the remnants of Helene over the next few days, but there's no current imminent signs that we are going to see a large, storm or trough come over the Rocky Mountains. What that essentially means is that we're going to have ridging in place, and that's going to keep a large chunk of the United States dry throughout the upcoming week. Here's what it looks like by Monday into Tuesday. There will be a trough back all the way up in Canada that's actually going to bring some colder air into areas like the northern plains and the Midwest, so that'll bring at least some relief for those that have been dealing with the heat recently. But unfortunately, we're not really going to get much rain out of that for those in the Midwest. Once we go later into the week, this is where things get a little bit more concerning, I think. If we do get a tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico, we might have a very zonal flow pattern back over up in Canada. What that essentially means is that there's really no troughing, and this would basically mean that there's nothing really picking up any sort of tropical storms or hurricanes if one does come towards the United States. That means if we do get something that develops in the Gulf of Mexico late next week, that might stall in the Gulf and actually intensify. We will have to watch this very closely, especially since we've already had 4 different hurricanes make landfall in the United States this year: Beryl, Francine, Debbie, and as well as now Helene, which was obviously a Category 4 hurricane. Now, over the next several days for the entire lower 48, most of the rain is going to be sitting over the Ohio Valley this weekend. So if you have any plans there, it's going to be cloudy, rainy, and also a bit windy. Once we go into Monday into Tuesday, that trough will make a close pass by into the upper Midwest. But again, not really expecting much rain out of that, but there will be some colder weather. If you're back over in the upper Midwest, which will be a little bit nice, rain's going to pick up on Wednesday in the Northeast. Areas on the West Coast continue to stay dry. And as we go into Thursday and as well as into Friday, we're still watching for a very dry weather pattern for most of the country. And then next weekend will be the time where we have to watch for maybe some sort of tropical storm or hurricane to develop in the Gulf of Mexico, which we're going to talk again more about here in just a minute. As a reminder, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Again, we'll be continuing to keep you posted with the weather across the entire lower 48. Now, here's the latest in terms of the temperatures over the next few days. Cold weather is going to continue back over in the southeast, or at least below average temperatures. The remainder of the country is going to continue to stay above average, as we're just not really seeing anything when it comes to activity with low pressure systems. Once we go into Monday into Tuesday of next week, that heat continues to build. We could be talking about some record-breaking high temperatures in the upper Midwest and back into Canada. And then once we go later into the week, again, notice that cooler air moving into the Midwest. That'll cool things down just a little bit as we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, right around and just below average for temperatures. And then by Thursday into Friday, the above average temperatures return to the entire country for the most part. The only exception more than likely being the Pacific Northwest. Now let's talk about the tropics. They are heating up very fast. We have, again, 4 different areas really that we're watching. Helene would be the 5th, but we're kind of done with Helene. It's mostly just rain at this point. We have Hurricane Isaiah back over in the northern Atlantic Ocean, which has actually been intensifying over the last 24 hours. And then we have 2 new oranges that you can see here. We have one back over in the northwestern Caribbean Sea into the Gulf of Mexico, and then another area of development back over here in the central and eastern Atlantic Ocean, back over in the main development region. These 2 are the ones that we're watching for the closest. One reason why is because the one in the Caribbean Sea is going to more than likely pose a threat to the United States if it develops into a tropical storm or hurricane, which the odds of that are increasing. The other one back out here in the main development region, more than likely going to become some sort of hurricane as we go into next week. Not currently expected to impact the United States, but it might even become a major hurricane as it moves into parts of the Atlantic Ocean. Not a guarantee yet, but definitely something we're watching. We also have Tropical Storm Joyce. We're not forgetting about that one, but again, it looks like that one's going to be a fish storm as it continues to move off to the north. Now, I do want to reiterate with the current weather pattern that we're expecting next week across the entire United States, we are more than likely going to have a zonal flow, which means if any sort of tropical cyclone does develop, there's probably not going to be much steering it, which means that if something develops, we could see it stall somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, which would basically be worst case scenario, because we would definitely see an intensifying tropical storm or hurricane, which could even become something more major if that does happen as we go into next week. So we are watching this very, very closely with this current weather pattern that's being forecasted. Now, on the flip side of things, this is what it looks like across the entire Atlantic Ocean over the next few days. Notice Isaiah, that is going to continue to move off to the east. We are also watching Joyce, which is expected to weaken over the next few days, not really intensify. Once we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, we're going to be watching this area back over in the Central American Gyre for a new tropical system to try to develop. This is exactly where Helene developed, by the way, so it's a very familiar, territory at this point. And then this would be our next upcoming hurricane, which would more than likely, I think, develop sometime by about Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. By Thursday into Friday, we're watching really 2 different areas. Again, we got that intensifying hurricane in the main development region, and then we got that cyclone that's going to try to develop in the Caribbean Sea. Here's where the things become more concerning. Obviously, the energy that's in the Gulf of Mexico has been used up quite a bit, but if this does go more to the west, it would be able to have a much better chance basically of intensifying due to the environment not really being used up recently by any sort of hurricane, meaning the water's still very warm and whatnot. So by Thursday and Friday, notice how this continues to move into the Gulf of Mexico. By Friday into Saturday, the GFS model has this very slowly moving, which again would mean we would see something really intensify, I think. And then by Sunday into Monday, this actually has making landfall somewhere over, again, basically in Florida or southern Alabama or Mississippi as a hurricane. Now, again, this is one model run. The GFS has been all over the place with location of this making landfall and also intensity. So this is not set in stone, but it is something we're going to be watching for. And there's a strong probability, I would say, of this developing into something as we go into next week. This is the GEFS ensemble member run. It gives you an idea of essentially what this system could do with a bunch of different computer models all embedded into one graphic. This is by Tuesday into Wednesday. Multiple ensemble members have now caught on to the potential for an intensifying tropical storm as we go into Wednesday of next week in the northwestern Caribbean Sea. By the time we go into Thursday, this continues to move through the Yucatan Channel or potentially into the Yucatan Peninsula or Cuba, kind of somewhere in that area by Thursday. And then by Friday, the ensemble members are very split when it comes to both intensity and as well as where this will be located. Some of them have this as, strong as a Cat 2 hurricane back over in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, a few of which also have this as a tropical storm moving towards areas like Louisiana. But I think the biggest story, with this, if it does develop, is how it might stall in the Gulf of Mexico by Saturday into Sunday, and it might actually intensify further. This group of ensemble members right here indicating more of a Cat 2, Cat 3 type hurricane back over just south of Louisiana. But again, a lot of these ensemble members as well are not showing anything really other than just maybe a weak tropical storm or even a depression. So there is obviously a wide range of scenarios that could happen if this does develop, but it is obviously trending towards a bit more of a concerning side of things, because this is not a signal that you want to see. see, obviously we just had a CAG storm, which is a Central American gyre storm. It literally just happened. Helene was that, and we could see another one. So this is not something that you want to be seeing, but again, we're going to continue to keep you posted with the latest on this. We'll have another video talking about this tomorrow in more detail if it is still a concern, so make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Aside from the actual forecasting, I do want to talk about my friends over in the Appalachian Mountains, anywhere North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. We just got done with a historic rainfall event, but it's still not over. There are still lots of flood warnings in those areas with a lot of flooding right now. So again, make sure that you're heeding any flash flood warnings at all. It is still a very dangerous situation as there are still dam failures ongoing, and there have been obviously dam failures already that have happened. So make sure that you are staying safe there. And again, prayers to anybody that's been impacted by this catastrophic flooding event in the southeast. And a huge shout out to anybody that subscribed to the channel over the last couple of days. We've gained over 20,000 subscribers in the matter of about 48 hours. So again, appreciate you guys all tuning into the channel. Again, it's been crazy with Hurricane Helene, and I do expect that this hurricane season is not over, and we might be live again here soon for another landfalling hurricane in the United States. And again, we'll be here for you if that does end up happening. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.